You're welcome.
What happened to the other? What happened to the freaking script? What happened to the script? I mean, we have ours, but
Okay.
do you see yourself? You see?
Yeah.
How are you sitting?
Muff, did you find it?
What happened to the thing with the links with the script? Mm.
Let's see.
Okay,
Do
nope,
anything
that ain't
now.
it. Ain't it.
There's me
There's Miss
and
Moore.
Michelle.
Whatever I run.
Page unresponsive. Let's wait. Okay, this is not working for me. We got 9 minutes. Come on, let's go, baby. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. Hi, Brenda. Back. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go out and come back. I guess we'll see. 'Cause this thing is, you're crazy. Let me see. I got the number. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Try again. I don't know. It's coming up twice. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, hopefully they can hear me.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Writer's Room. I'm Rachel Wenrick, the director, and we are thrilled that you joined us for the release of Anthology, our 6th annual collection. Tonight, in the midst of a global pandemic and a global protest movement for racial justice, we are holding space to celebrate our writers. Their work, beautiful even when the subject is hard, offers a way forward in the world together. Poet Elizabeth Alexander asks, what is the power of our words once we're in the room? Do they move us closer to the ideal of beloved community? She writes, our language is what we live in and how we collectively express ourselves, one voice at a time. So we begin tonight's reading with a collective work created in collaboration with Mural Arts Philadelphia's guest curator in residence, Daniel Tucker, and People's Paper Co-op artists, Courtney Bowles and Mark Strandquist, for the series Power Map, Historical Mural Activations. We Exist in Multitudes was written in response to Sydney Goodman's Boy with a Raised Arm. Raz, do you want to go ahead and get us started?
Sure. We exist in multitudes. We contain conflicting stories. We carry generations of information in our DNA. We are standing on the shoulders of those who came before us.
Our family is the backbone, our source of strength, the vessel of love and support. It is the starting point, the spot from which we venture forth into the world and the place to which we can return. Can we hear from Muffy?
Sure, if I can. I don't even know where I'm at. Sorry. I'm trying my best. My screen is messing up. No, you can't mute, but
Would you like someone to read it for you?
yes, please.
But home can also be
Having a
insecure.
hard time.
But home can also be insecure. Our dreams can be stepped on by our families, friends, and other haters. Gentrification and displacement are all around. Building community means ensuring that everyone has a place to come home to. We'll hear from Brenda.
Oh, here we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. We are healing from old and new wounds, from self-harm from abuse, from feeling we are nothing. We have many to help us cope, to deal with what has stemmed from oppression and culture. We are a culmination of years of history, tradition, and experiences. Our personalities are formed from the countless people we meet. We are more complex than others might see at first glance. I constantly have new ideas and am learning to make them a reality. The world is a dark and cruel place, but only because people don't know right from wrong. But I do. I work for world peace.
I think that you're sure at everybody's point. It's okay.
All right, so it's my pleasure now to introduce our co-MCs for the evening, Bella Randazzo and Devin Welsh. Bella is at this very moment finishing her first year as a chemical engineering major. We met Bella and her mom, hi Bella's mom, when they were touring Drexel and found our studio in McAllister Hall. Bella came to her first workshop back in September at the Dornsife Center before she even moved to campus. You can see her there in that photo. She's already a part of the squad. And our second MC, Devin Welsh, is almost this very moment graduating with a BA in English and writing from Drexel. And I know your mom is watching. Hi, Devin's mom. Thanks for finally following us on Insta. He joined Writers Room back in 2016, his first week at Drexel, as we kicked off a festival celebrating Zora Neale Hurston's life and work. Devin, I don't know if you can see yourself there in your white shirt and white chucks, watching the action from the edge of the crowd. But now you're in the center and you're showing the rest of us how it's done. Take it away, kids.
All right, so for our readings this afternoon, we're going to start off with a Brianna Hymns. Brianna is a biological sciences and writing minor at Drexel University alumni. She's a lab tech on weekends, a self-taught artist and plant sitter on weekends, and a regular participant in Writers' Room workshops. So she's here to share some of her spirit with us today.
Hi, so I first wrote this piece. It was called Stream of Consciousness, and I guess as of right now, my stream of consciousness is kind of slow, but I'll read it as best I can through Zoom. Okay, but it's called Cause and Effect. I don't know where I am anymore, whether it's inside me or outside of me. I don't know what to adhere to, or even if adherence is hindrance, and hindering on what? But myself and who I am, and how I am to be perceived, because perception is everything that I've attached a meaning to, without meaning to, since I've grown up seeing things that play a role in my psyche and my psychology. I don't know anymore because I know many things without knowing where I knew the knowledge from. And it either makes me a genius or an idiot, depending on who I'm talking to. But really, I'm talking to me, and I think I'm losing it. It being myself. But what is self but a bunch of copy-paste features from someone else? Starting with my parents and ending with the last conversation I had with my friends, with a valid opinion to shape my own opinion, thus shaping more of how I think and perceive. My mind is a sieve, porous and wholly, fine-meshed, yet I'm trying to press coarse information through without any refinement. Fine then. I'll just have to dig deeper into my conscience and decide what I am to be, because right now I'm not really satisfied with being me.
Thank you, Bree. Up next, we have my co-MC, Bella. She is an incredible poet and has been with us as a rock star this entire first year. And without further ado, I would love to have her read.
All right, thank you, Devin. This poem is called That Which Holds Atlas. Consider that the web weaves the body instead. Remember each leg as a limb for the community spindles, not just for one lone thorax. The ebbing 8 eyes, where do I look when all I see is isolation? Hovering diamond dew trees with glossy, soft branches, we swing, hang, dip, sing hymns, psalms, and jingles for the fluid midnight hunt. We crowd, aloft over one hand-sewn silk quilt of soft earth, aloft under a sea of planets and predators, watching, wrinkling, waning. All of us might be dead by dawn, all yarn and epoxy, all stiff, also naturally sorry, all tucking our shameful faces into our chests and hugging our abdomens for an arachnid's eternity. Or maybe we just all shed together, witness the shriveling of what our bodies once were, what we once saw ourselves to be in those glazed over leaves. Maybe we let rigor mortis interlock our deaths as we all collapse into that final quilt, create chains of arachnids in the afterlife, revel in the freedom of those bonds, love the canopy, but respect the pine fronds that send softly those retired bodies into solar systems beyond present existence, suspended, breathless, and distant. Flies mosey by in the nighttime, caught up with us in the next instant. We treat our collected lives like a collective suite, and cavities run like grills over our teeth. Feast. We feast. Consider that the web weaves the body instead. All right, thank you guys for listening. So next up we have Brenda Bailey. So she's been part of the writer's room for a very long time. She's used the importance of words and research to express herself. She's a tripod writer in residence, and she has just been one of the most amazing souls that I have met here through both her words and her presence. So without further ado, Brenda.
Oh, thank you, Bella. This is called Small Things. When I picture my dad, I'm sorry. I was the youngest of 3 girls. When I was born, my sisters were preteens. By the time I was of age, they had moved from home and gotten married. I'm 5 years older than my oldest niece. Therefore, I was sort of raised like an only child. The first thing I remember looking forward to with my mom was us saying my prayers at the edge of the bed. She would say, "Okay, Brenda, that's enough," because I would be asking God to bless everyone. When I was a little older, I would pin curl or roll her hair, and we talked about everything. She would tell me about her times on the farm when she was a girl picking cotton, how much she missed her mother. She died when she was a young girl, about 6, maybe 7 years old. I would say, "Mommy, you're hugging me too tight." She would say, "This is the death grip hug." My dad would come over and give us a scratchy beard kiss on the cheek. The 3 of us would laugh like crazy. And I would think to myself, they are so corny. Why are they always hugging and kissing on me? Maybe it's the pandemic and having to be quarantined. But I have been thinking about those times, the hugs, the kisses. I can feel the beard scratching my face, her arm squeezing me. That was love, the small things. The color of lavender in the field, birds chirping, cotton clouds in the sky, the smell of fresh cut grass, laughter, tears, scratchy beard kisses, death grip hugs, conversation, faith, love, the small things.
Thank you, Brenda. Next up,
Yes.
we have Deja Jade. She is a photographer and an aspiring fashion designer and graduated from Robeson not this year, but last. And she's been a tripod writer with us for the last 2 years. Unfortunately, she's not here with us today, but Kirsten Kashok is kind enough to read for her. Whenever you're ready.
On Luggage by Deja Jade. What's the difference between luggage and baggage? Luggage sounds like a not so heavy feeling, like you can rise above what you felt or have been feeling. Baggage is heavy. It weighs you down. It slows you down but But does baggage take longer to unpack? And does luggage linger? The only thing I think I carry with me is the weight of my past that I haven't fully unpacked. The first thing I've had to unpack is the journals of my life. Taking out volume 1, dealing with physical and mental abuse, and then turning that into self-harm. After that, unpacking volume 2, the words of a girl who once again had to deal with being sexually assaulted. Shortly after, moving on to volume 3, knowing that nothing that's happened will ever be my fault, and accepting that people will not admit their wrongs. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Kiki, for reading for us. So next we have Tiff Ellis. She is a Drexel Community Scholar at Writers' Room, a tripod writer in residence, and a student of Drexel University for biology and public health. So she does it all. She uses her love for science and her passion for women's health to travel and make the world a better place for women all around. And she is currently not present in the Zoom call today. However, we will have Victoria be reading for her. So welcome, Victoria.
Thank you. Two pieces by Tiffany Ellis. I love you even when you're not looking your best, even when everything is not on deck for you. The yellow on you shines as the sun hits you from the left. The blue in you hides away, but still beautiful as ever. Your walls are a little worn out, but I still love everything about you. Number 2, when winter arrives, trees don't lose their leaves. The idea of even the word of annotation is nowhere near that. Trees gain more access to the sun. You see a tree without leaves, and I see a tree sunbathing naked. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Next up, we have John McDonald, aka Little Naj. He is a recent Paul Robeson graduate and lit up our first ever open mic. And he was also a tripod writer in residence this past year with us. John, you ready?
Yes, sir. The way. I love the way the sky meets the forest and how the water reflects on the surface. The black and gray colors make me feel so safe and secure. The tree looks as if they're touching the cold, wet water. If only I could be there to witness the weather, to see how it felt. Was it cold or warm? Are the questions I ask myself as I gaze deep into the photo and get lost in the space.
All right, thank you so much, John. So our next writer will be a Norman Kane. And he is a West Philadelphia native, a Bluefield State College alumni, and he majored in social science and minored in English. He's a retired social worker, teacher, father of 5, and grandfather of 7, and also a tripod writer in residence, with the Writers' Room. I've heard Norman perform many times, and he just brings such beautifully transcribed history and spirit to every performance. So without further ado, Norman.
Good evening. This is an excerpt from Ancestral Vision. Just a moment. When I told my mother, who had taken me because of my transgressions from the head of the dinner table of the vision, she without hesitation proclaimed, "They came to tell you that you can make it." The vision caused me to remember the time when I transferred the same dusty road that appeared in my dream during the scorching South Carolina summers in the days of my youth, when I, a northern boy, was sent south to my grandparents' farm after school was closed for the summer. Then I would be barefoot, shirtless, wearing a straw hat, and trudging to and from my grandparents' tobacco field. The vision conjured memories of the house that Uncle Charlie, the first in the procession that appeared in the vision, occupied. It was a house that was fronted by a humongous, fully leaved cloak tree that stretched towards the heavens and whose strong roots would not allow it to be moved. In spite of the elimination of 4 of the 8 rooms that housed the family of my maternal grandparents during a storm. Each day, me, my sister, and Dolores, my oldest cousin, who was raised by my grandparents in the house down the road, would visit Uncle Charlie, who briefly lived at 40th and Market Street during the 1920s. There was a family portrait upon the south wall of the living room. It included my maternal great-grandfather, George Wainwright Cusack, who was seated and dressed in black. Standing to his right and dressed in white was his wife, Nancy. In the background stood the 11 children of the family: Charlie, Emma, Georgia, Lexington, Spencer, Beatrice, Amelia, Lorenzo, Susan, Ellen, and Maggie. The house was like a family museum. Upon the floor lay the instruments that the Cusack band played specifically during Juneteenth. Among the instruments were a snare drum, bass drum, tuba, bugle, and a piano. Uncle Charlie would play the instruments and tell us folklore and ancestral stories. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Norman. Next up, we have Kyle Howie, who's an original member of Tripod's Team Super back in year 1. He's an incredibly talented artist and has been for the past year the Alumni Fellow, helping to make things smoothly here at Writer's Room. Without further ado, Kyle Howie.
Hey everyone, can you hear me all right? Cool. I apologize, there's someone beeping outside my window right now, so this will be fun. All right, this piece is called Era of the Future. I see her now as she was 50 years ago. The Victoria Huggins Purifoy, West Philadelphia High School class of 1969, in front of an audience of her peers. A person like I'd never known her, but at the same time as she's always been, as I know her. A brilliant, radiant force of positivity, creativity, empathy, an eye for greatness, grace, and a voice that makes mountains sway and dance. We are 50 years young, she proclaims to an audience of peers. 160 faces, 160 different stories, teenagers now a half-century older, reunited in the ballroom of Galdo's Catering in South Philadelphia, with colorful outfits and hats, style, hugs, smiles, laughs, and wine glasses galore. The Marla Merritt Jazz Band and DJ Julius Brown entertaining the room, and Dr. Dolores White Williams, former principal of West Philadelphia High, introducing the evening. Victoria bringing the class to session the way she does best, in word. She reads directly from the heart a piece titled I Came Up With. Later in the night, I interview Victoria. She describes their year 1969 as the era of the future, a time of enthusiasm and radical change. Uncertain times, fear and excitement. This all rang through her speech earlier in the night and echoed to me of where we are today. I think on my generation. As I reflect and write, our society is under threat of dissolution by various means, and yet we are excited by revolution, a time when nothing is certain for us now except certain change. We yearn for it, we need it, but we also need an appreciation of the past. An acknowledgement of the voices that made and carried these echoes to us in the present. The Victoria Huggins Purifoy, West Philadelphia High School class of 1969, is a voice for my generation. Her voice resonates in me like a chord I never expected, and a song that's been building in my head for years. Whenever she enters a room, I feel Victoria's words, echoes of other songs and building on them, like an unending flame. Everybody get together, try to love one another, right now.
Thank you so much, Kyle. And next up, we have none other than the Victoria Huggins Purifoy. So she has a bachelor's degree she is getting her bachelor's degree at Pierce College, focusing on organizational leadership. She's a mother, a grandmother, an author, a poet, and a spoken word artist in the local community, including tripod writer in residence. I've gotten the privilege of hearing Victoria perform many times, and she just has such extremely warm, thoughtful, and confident energy. And I can't wait for you guys to hear what she has today. So, Victoria.
Good afternoon, everyone. This piece was written as a result of a class that I attended with Valerie Fox, who's a professor at Drexel. And there was a prompt that said, write about something 100 years from now. So this piece is called a Computer Lab Review of year 2120. In 2120, I will only be a memory, maybe. I will lend a prophecy that cars will be in Jetson mode off the ground. All schooling will be done at home because school systems will be outdated. Cockroaches will be the new alpha dog, ruff, ruff. Technology will be through the roof, far from the eastern shore. Countries separated by tsunamis and earthquakes, and China will rule the USA, who will have no say anymore. Some of us will have tickets paid in advance to go to Mars. The US will be the new Grand Caymans because the poor folks will be left behind. We will become a bionic civilization, everyone having some mechanical part, at least one new hip or a bionic ear that hears everyone's thoughts before the thoughts come out. Food consumption will be limited to one astronaut pack a day. We will occupy other planets like avatars in separate nations. Plugging up to the matrix will be a must. If we don't blow up the planet first, it's gonna be rough, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Next up, we have Rosalind Clyett. She is a native Philadelphian and a life coach who loves to write. She's been with us as a tripod writer in residence for the last 3 years, and it is my pleasure to now introduce her to the floor.
Thank you, Devin. The piece I'm going to share with you is called The Woman in the Picture. The Woman in the Picture. Upon my arrival to class, there was a table full of pictures, photos of trains, bikes, and people. As I was looking through the pictures, there was a photo of a woman that seemed to be peeking at me from under another photo. So I pulled her out from under the picture, and it was as if she spoke to me. She is a woman of poise and beauty, one whose grace and control was very appealing to those who came in contact with her, like a flower is to a bee or a moth is to a light. And her eyes had a purity about them, just like the first beautiful sunlit day of spring, with the warmth and the fresh fragrance that fills the air, that makes you want to breathe in deeply and exhale slowly with a sigh. In her eyes was the purity of love. To be in her presence was alluring, seductive, even enticing, with eyes that seen a lot but still held its peace. A kind of softness which made you feel you could trust her. I'm going to call her Grace. But what people couldn't see was the pain, the hurt, and the disappointment that Grace suffered in her life and love. One would think she wouldn't have such a problem in that area, especially in the department of love. It's as if people seem to think if you look a certain way, you have a past in life. Not so. Because trouble, problems, along with hurts and disappointments, come looking for whomsoever they can destroy, like parasites living in the intestines of a dead animal. People tend to live in a world of assumptions, speculations, fear, and surmise, supposing that something is true without evidence to confirm it. Regardless to how Grace looked in her photos, Her life was anything but peaches and cream. In her life, Grace had to deal with all kinds of assumptions, lies, and jealousies, being misunderstood, and they even made false accusations about her character, accusing her of hurtful things that was the furthest thing from her heart. And in the love department, Grace learned that people didn't really know how to love. And when they don't know how to love, they abuse, sometimes verbal, other times physical or mental. A lesson that nearly destroyed her life. She experienced a kind of death, a kind of hopelessness that would cause another to just shrivel up and die. So while lying in her bed, wrapped up in her blanket of hurts and self-pity, with her television running, trying to drown out the noise in her head, a minister came on and she heard a life-giving message, one that grabbed hold of her soul, and she sat up, still dealing with the hardship that life offered her. She continued to watch and listen. Then she heard a woman's testimony of her life, which mirrored hers, except this woman looked so happy and alive. It was at that very moment Grace decided to be a survivor instead of a victim. It was a process, but being determined to live and not die, she kept it up. She kept at it. She learned how to forgive herself and others. She learned how to let go of hurts and disappointments, and after learning who she was and not who people said she was, she learned to love herself, doing things God's way. Grace grew strong when she could have stayed bitter. She grew wiser when she could have continued in the foolishness of mind. Grace is a survivor. Look at her picture and look into her eyes, and you'll see a woman full of wealth, full of riches, full of peace, that only comes from living life, dying, and being resurrected, born again. You see, when you meet a woman who has been in God's presence daily, that means she has been loved at the highest level. She knows who she is. She knows what real love feels like, and she's not going to settle for anything less. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ross. All right, so next we have Malika Kodabadaganti.
Thank you, Devin.
Next we have Malika Kodabadaganti. She is a bio major, photographer, and a writer who joined us here at Writer's Room about a year ago. Her passions include giving her dog belly rubs, drinking coffee, and now writing. She's a tripod writer in residence with us, and she just has a beautiful spirit, and I'm really excited for her to read today. So without further ado, Malika.
Thank you, Bella. Friday afternoon at the cemetery. The drive to Laurel Hill Cemetery was lengthy but beautiful. This was surprisingly my first time on Kelly Drive, even though I've been living in Philly for over 3 years now. It made me realize that I've barely seen the city, let alone experienced it. I didn't know all these trees existed and that the road sharply curved like the river next to it. I remembered that back in March, my uncle in Portland, Oregon, told me that driving on this road was one of his favorite parts about living in Philly, and I could see why. When we arrived at the cemetery, we quickly found warmth in the tiny museum at the entrance. I saw a casket meant for a child, possibly a bassinet stroller, and pictures of people long gone. It smelled like the prison I had classed in last summer, sour, like something close to going bad, but not there yet. The only grave I remember learning about from our tour guide Jim involved a woman who loved chemistry. Her name was Mary Engel Pennington. All she wanted to do was go to school and learn, but they were hesitant to allow her to because she was a woman. Somehow, she made it over hundreds of barriers to finally get her doctorate in 1885. Her story made me thankful for it being 2020, but it also made me mad. Nearly 2 centuries later, and here we are still experiencing misogyny and discrimination. Humans have evolved into a very advanced species, but we somehow haven't learned to abandon backwards thinking. As the sun moved closer to the horizon, we slowly made our way back to the entrance of the cemetery. It started snowing, and I was surprised my fingers were still working. In spite of the awful weather, though, I still found those last few minutes at the cemetery beautiful. Deep oranges from the sun were reflected in the river, and off the shiny roofs of the cars driving by. Everyone had rosy cheeks and noses from the cold, and the snow decorated our heads. Promises of warmth in the gift shop put smiles on our faces. While thawing out on the drive home, I realized that spending the past few hours in the cemetery was oddly life-affirming, and I was looking forward to my evening filled with socializing. But it's easy to become preoccupied with endings. The trip to the cemetery confirmed the inevitability of death, so I didn't see the point in being too worried about it right now.
Thank you, Malika. Next up, we have Tamir Gillette. He has been with us as a tripod writer in residence. He's also a songwriter, a poet, and I don't know if I mentioned this with John, but John, Tamir, and Naye are all just graduating from Paul Robeson High School. Give a little shout out to them. They deserve it. And it's my pleasure to introduce Tamir Gillette.
Oh, snap. Am I supposed to just read?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The day Emmanuel and I went to 39th Street, a conversation about poor came up. He asked me, "Do you think of yourself as poor?" I told him yes and no. We were taking pictures of empty lots and trees. The neighborhood we were in was run down and had a lot of trash all over the place. That's how our conversation came about. And that made me think about a class assignment about capitalism. Can you define poor? Poor means to have little or something. For example, money or belongings. If you are not rich, you are poor. I don't believe in poor because to me, poor is a mindset. I may not have as much money, but that doesn't make me poor. Capitalism is what separates the poor from the rich. Have you ever heard the quote, "Anyone can be rich if they work hard enough"? Well, that is something I disagree with. There's only so much room at the top. In order to make money, you first have to take it from someone else. This can be done through selling things, taxation, or any other means. But this means that the rich cannot exist without the poor. Any way you look at it, there will never be equality under capitalism. Devin and John went to 38th Street took a picture of buildings, and Devin told me how relatable the pictures was to capitalism. The buildings were lined up into different sizes, and a perfect example of capitalism. Devin wowed me with a story about Dave Chappelle telling his son the difference between broke and poor.
Right. Thank you so much, Tamir. All right. So next we have Quiche. She is one of the coolest people that I've met at the Writers' Room. She's a self-proclaimed humanitarian, poet, and creative spirit. She graduated from Paul Robeson High School in 2019. Congratulations. And she's a tripod writer in residence. She touches the world with her art. She truly has just this unique and self-healing vibe about her, such amazing energy. And I just can't wait for you guys to hear her. So, Quiche.
I was not ready for that, but thank you. Should I just start reading?
Yep, whenever you're ready.
If blinded love brings you eternity on heaven's angelic and clouds, what does my attraction to you have to do with the way we walk on Nels and Hades? If I was to hold your hand in the deepest land of quicksand, why does my shallowness get dismissed for the times I want to reminisce? Sometimes I just want to be still and stare into your glare like Kahlo, but I don't know what's behind your riot, so I paint a picture. To be in love with the poster, but which one of us is real? My mind will race 1,000 miles of thoughts just to get you to have a mind to sit still, meditation on the hills. Thank you.
Thank you, Keish.
No problem. And thank you for the intro. I can say the same about all y'all.
Now, it's my pleasure to introduce to all y'all Miss Muffy, Shonda Rice, but Muffy for friends. She's been one of our original members here at Writers Room. She's been a student here at Drexel since 2013, where she got her culinary degree. She also sets up and helps to hold down our monthly dinners that we have at the Dornsife Center. Later, she became a member of Drexel's Urban Garden and worked at Drexel's Eat Cafe. So as you can see, she loves food and feeding people. She never fails to feed us down there at the studio. I can't wait to get back to that. She plans on being the oldest student on campus, she says. If they have an opening for another class, I'm taking it. Not only does she cook, she's a writer, a comedian, a chef, and a fashion designer. She wants to take classes at Westfall this coming semester. And like I said, without further ado, here is Muffy.
Good evening, everyone, and to God be glory. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to read something a little different. And as y'all know, I always go to the left, so here we go. And this one is called I'm All Different Kinds of Fucked Up. Those of y'all who know me know that I'm all different kinds of fucked up. I'm a product of two people that by law should not have been allowed to marry, let alone fuck, but I exist. I'm a product of your hidden fantasies, and my grandma treats me as a half-breed. Sneaking in the night because you can't get my color off your mind. My lips, my hips, my fingertips are so sublime, and my hair drives you wild, but only in the night. During the day, you deploy me, ignore me, then want to lure me, but you loathe yourself for wanting me, needing me, because you know I bring your life flavor, and without me, there is none. I thought it was going to be just like my mom and dad. You were supposed to meet me with your heart. You told me you loved me, but not when it costs you something. I've taken blows till it's left a tree on my back. Beat me, rape me, till you gonna sell my children only to find that after picking cotton, they've been hanging from the trees all day. You got me all different kinds of fucked up. What kinds of fruits are these? I remember the days when we walked on our knees. What times are these? Where if you were black, you were guilty until proven innocent. Where, don't get me wrong, the same way y'all feel about black people, I was raised to think the same way too. I used to always say that my grandmother was a female Archie Bronca because she worked for Jewish people most of life. But now I see I was wrong. She was just telling us how the old green book, how to make it alive home. Maids are still slaves. Every day I march to Josephine Baker singing in my head. The times they are changing. Yes, the times they are a-changing. But I got shit all fucked up because obviously I was wrong. I thought that because I had moved up a little bit and because I had a mixed breed of friends, I was exempt. But you sure reminded me of my place, and I thought that we were equals, friends. Shit, she fooled me, but things are different now. I'm not the only one. Yeah, Mexicans marrying Filipinos, and Koreans with mulattoes like potatoes, and Puerto Ricans with Chinese. You talk about rice and beans? And blacks with Indians, and the children are beautiful. What you gonna tell them now? That they can't drink out the water fountain? Go ahead. They all ready to put the orange colostomy bag on a run. Keep talking crazy shit and you about to lose your job. Watch this thing. You about to lose your job. You're entertaining me for nothing. Yeah, I go to the left. That's me.
All right. Thank you so much, Buffy, as always. So next we're going to listen to, we have Nia Walker Cruz. She's a songwriter, and she feels as though she hasn't always been the best writer. Her writing has improved tenfold, 20-fold, a millionfold, and I agree 100%. She's just an amazing writer. And she is also a tripod writer in residence, and I don't believe that she is here today. So I'm not sure who's reading in her place.
Nice place.
Okay, awesome. All right. So whenever you're ready.
So this piece is called The Distance from 16. When I was 16, well, when I was a fresh 16-year-old, I was broken. Both physically and mentally, I was broken. My arm was broken, so was my mind. Everything was happening around me. I'd been dealing with depression and anxiety for 2 years prior. It was painful and hurting and draining. Everyone was watching me closely. I had already hurt myself further. My mental state had been affected detrimentally. I woke up one morning in so much pain, told my grandma, and, as normal, was a hypochondriac. She dissed it because she couldn't believe a 16-year-old could be in so much pain. So, shout out to Naye. We miss her and love her.
Thank you, Taj. Next up, we have Jordan McCullough, a founding member of Writers Room and one of the most unique voices I've ever heard. He's been a tripod writer in residence for the last 3 years. And without further ado, Jordan McCullough.
If you build it, you can destroy it. The fire blows through. Don't get in my way to prevent a clear passage. Be anything, not nothing. The vision of like the earth that spins.
Thank you so much, Jordan. Always a pleasure to hear you read. All right, so next we have a Carol Richardson McCullough. She writes to give life to her fantasies because the world is just filled with wonders too fantastic to ignore. She's a memoirist at heart, a native West Virginian, and she now resides in Philly, where she is a tripod writer in residence here at the Writers Room. She is so sweet and such an amazing person, and I can't wait to hear her read. So, Carol.
I am both humbled and amazed at the image of the little black girl standing in her side yard by her house on the corner of the top of the hill long ago, because that girl, painted in shades of brown, gold, and earthen tones on the spectrum between those two colors, was me when I was about 7 years old. The hands, showing the wrinkles of time's passage, are mine now, painted, holding the snapshot while reflecting on my home. The artist, Michelle Ortiz, thinks big while never losing sight of the little people and the smaller details. She recognizes the importance of it all in the big picture. Who knows where Michelle will be or what she will be doing next week? But I do not doubt that on some level, It will be a continuation of the work she has committed her energies and talents to doing, addressing profound issues while opening minds and sensitizing hearts through beautifully powerful images and the dialogue around them. She is bold, brave, and intentional. Her work is both prolific and profound. Her work, the work, goes on. She never stops. Once thought-filled people become inspired and encouraged, words can be put into action. Action can change the world if its actors are bold enough, brave enough, and intentional enough to never stop working towards the goal. And I just want to repeat that last statement. Action can change the world if its actors are bold enough, brave enough, and intentional enough to never stop working towards the goal. So we're in the midst right now of a movement toward justice, and it started a long time ago. Things were happening when I was the age of that little girl in the photograph, and they got started and they made progress and they went back and then they came forward again. But the thing of it is, it's a long train to justice. So you gotta ride it, and you gotta ride or die. It started long ago, and this movement has now gained worldwide momentum. It can't stop. It won't stop. Gotta keep on toward the goal. Rest in peace, George Floyd. Rest in peace.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Carol, for those words, for sharing. Try to keep it together. Okay. So last but certainly very much not least, we have Devin Walsh. He is one of the first people I was introduced to at the Writers' Room. He is he's just an amazing photographer and writer and person and communicator. He's my co-MC, wouldn't ask for anybody else. Yeah, he's a tripod writer in residence, and he's in his senior year. He actually just presented a senior project, which is amazing. And he is just becoming one of my great friends, and I can't wait for him to read for you guys. So, Devin.
I don't know what to say about that introduction other than thank you so much, and thank you to Carol. This is Conversations at Laurel Hill. What do you think of our new neighbors? No, the new ones, with the houses that look like Legos. You think they'll try and kick us out next? You should see the view from old Ernie's up the hill. They'd kill for a view like that. Bright green moss crawls across cold gray stone, emerges from dead leaves and wet earth, and out of death, life. Are you as bored as the faceless angels leaning on tired elbows above where you sleep? Or are you dancing to a tune that I'm too young to hear in a maze of dancing bones? There was something about this leaf, lying face down in the puddle, that made me stop and watch as the wind blew life and ripples into the cold water gathered from melancholy clouds. Something that whispered to the part of me that gets so tired. It wasn't until she gathered her things, turned to leave, and spread her wings that I saw she was an angel. Thank you.
Thank you, Devin. Thank you for, I saw Devin do his presentation today. I I don't know, Devin, if you saw the scrolling Devin for President 2036 coming up all over, but it was awesome. It is my great pleasure right now I'm Kirsten Kashok. I am a faculty director at Writers Room and just a member and lifelong, forever. And it's my great pleasure to introduce John Riley today. He's a Senior Vice President and Global Managed Service for Canon Solutions America, and we have to thank Canon for supporting Tripod, which is our intergenerational writing and photography program and project that has really enhanced the way that we've been able to storytell in the last 3 years. This has been the pilot phase, and we couldn't have done it without their graciousness, and they have granted us the cameras that were on loan are now ours, and we want to thank them for that. And I want to introduce some remarks from John Riley right now. So John, if you're there, please take it away.
I am here. Thank you, Kirsten. And before I get into a little bit more detail, I want to congratulate all of you that have just recently graduated or will shortly. I know it's not been a typical senior year, and I heard a number of you saying that you either just graduated or will shortly. So big congratulations go out to you. I'm fortunate enough to be participating in this year's event and representing Canon for the 2nd year in a row. Although obviously different from last year, due to our current remote world that we're all getting so used to, I remain in awe. Your words and your shared experiences not only touch me greatly, but more importantly, they educate me. Some of you may recall something I shared last year, that rooted in Canon's existence is our corporate philosophy of kyosei. Kyosei is a Japanese word that conveys our dedication to seeing all people, regardless of culture, customs, language, or race, harmoniously living and working together in happiness into the future. My hope is for you to continue to expand your reach and to widen your audience to increase the exposure to your works and to enlighten on a broader basis. We are proud to have been a small part of Tripod, and we really want to thank you all very much. Truly impressive year after year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. And thank you, Canon. I want to thank all our partners and sponsors, without which we could not function and continue to do the work that we do and be together in the way that we are. Right now, I want to take a special moment to thank Kyle and Tosh and Lauren, who are alumni of Writers Room in Drexel. Well, they're actually not alumni of Writers Room. Again, members for life, that's just what you are. And but they have worked to make this particular event happen tirelessly, getting people connected to tech who aren't normally as connected to tech, and also just being there this entire year, and especially these last 2 months, in a way that nobody could ask anybody to be, and doing it without complaint and with joy, and I thank them. And I want to especially thank everybody who's come to watch us tonight and to be present and join us and celebrate with us in the midst of the world changing. And I say the world can change and we can help it change. And we can also celebrate the work that you guys have continually been doing to make that happen. And I love you, and have a great weekend all.
Good job, everyone.
Yay! Can't snap. Try. See?
Woo!